Hello everyone, welcome to another video tutorial from SFDX Stop, and in this video we are going to learn how we can create a sketch work for managed package development, right? So let's say you want to create a Salesforce application or you want to create an AppExchange application, right? So first of all, you need to create a managed package. A managed package, now what is a managed package? A managed package is nothing, but it's just a bunch of Salesforce metadata that consists of all your configurations and all your customization, all your custom Apex code, everything that you want to include in your Salesforce application and AppExchange application, right? So in this video tutorial, we'll mainly focus on how we can create a sketch org if you want to create a managed package, or if you want to work, or if you're working on a project where you are creating an AppExchange application, right? So how you can create a sketch org for that and work on sketch orgs. So these are the five things that we are going to cover in this video. The first is we'll learn about namespace, and the second thing we'll learn about my domain. So these two things are required to create a sketch org when you want to work on managed package development. The third thing, we'll try to create a sketch org, and then we'll learn about how we can register the namespace in our DevHub org, right? So let's say you want to work on managed package development and you want to create a sketch org. So for that, so the procedure is not the same when you want to create a sketch org for any other kind of project, right? So in case of managed package, you actually need to register the namespace of your managed package in the DevHub org. So we'll see how we can do that, and finally we'll create a sketch org, right? So let's begin. First of all, I want to show you the difference between two orgs. This is one org where I have registered a namespace, and this is one org where I haven't registered a namespace, right? So if you want to register a namespace in your org, you can just go to setup, which you can find from here on the setup settings icon here, right? And then you can search for package manager, and once you will go to package manager, you will see here that if you have a namespace registered for your org or not. So right now you can see in this particular org, which is playful beer org, I don't have any namespace registered, so that's why it's coming as none. And if I go to my other dev org, which is Rahul Malhotra dev org, I have a namespace registered here which is named as RMAK, right? So in case you don't have any namespace registered and you want to register one, you can just go to edit button, and you can actually select a namespace or write a namespace by yourself. So these are some of the information about the namespace that you can have a look. If you actually register a namespace for your developer edition, or you cannot actually disable it and all that stuff. So that was written. You can read it, and here you can actually write a namespace for your org, whatever you want to write, and then you can just go to review my selections, and then you can register your namespace, right? So for this particular sketch org where I want to create a managed package, the namespace is required whenever you want to create a managed package. So I'm just going to use this particular developer edition org where I have a namespace as RMAK, and I'm going to use this particular namespace to create a sketch org as well, right? So I'm just going to close this org where I don't have a namespace registered because I don't require this, and this is the org that I require where I have a namespace registered. So we got to know that how we can register a namespace, and in short, I can say that our namespace is a unique identifier for your package that other people are going to install in their Salesforce orgs. So if I just go you a brief intro, like I have a namespace registered in my org, and let's say I create a custom object, right? So if I show you any custom object, like you can see I have a custom object name as expense here. So in the API name of that particular custom object, I am having my namespace as well. So my namespace is RMAK. It is coming as a prefix for the API name of my custom object. So whenever you are creating a custom object, you are creating custom fields, or you are creating any kind of metadata, you will have your namespace as well appended with the API name of your metadata, right? So this is actually for uniqueness, because your app is going to be installed in so many Salesforce organizations. So your app will be different from their own custom object. So let's say they also have a custom object name as expense, and your app also have a custom object name as expense, right? So in order to differentiate, you will have a namespace named as RMAK that will go along with your package. Okay, so this is why a namespace is required whenever you want to work on AppExchange applications, right? Okay, so let's learn about my domain now. Again, I have two orgs here. This is one org where I have my domain setup, and this is another org where I don't have my domain setup. So these two orgs are actually two dev hubs that I have right now, because whenever you want to create a Scratch org, you should have a dev hub first of all, right? So in this particular dev hub, I don't have any my domain setup. Like you can see, if I go to setup and search for my domain, I can add a my domain here, and I can check the availability and register my domain here, right? And if I go to here, which is another org where I have already a my domain setup, I can see my domain name, which is curious folks, and some random characters, right? Okay, so if you haven't set up my domain in your org, your domain will be like this, which is ap5.lightning.4.com or something else, but a very generic domain according to the area Salesforce instance that you are using, right? And if you have your domain name set up, you will have a domain name that you have set up. Like I have set up this domain name, so I'm getting this domain name in my Salesforce org, right? If you want to actually use your DevHub to create, or I should say to link your developer edition orgs, you should have a my domain setup. You will see why this is required when we move ahead in the tutorial. But for now, you can just keep a note that if you want to create a Scratch org for managed package development using your DevHub, you should have a my domain registered in your DevHub, right? Okay, so a my domain is just a domain name for your Salesforce, and it is required if you want to uh, create a Scratch org for managed package development, right? And we'll see why this is required moving ahead in the tutorial. Okay, so first of all, let's try to create a Scratch org using uh, this particular dev hub where I have my domain setup, right? So for this, what I'm going to do, I'm quickly going to create a new project here. So let's go to our command palette and click on create project. I'm going to create a standard project. I'm going to give my project name as, let's say, managed package project, right? And I'm going to press enter. Okay, so I'm going to choose this project folder itself, and it will create a SFDX project for me. Okay, so my new project is now created successfully, and in this project you can see here that I have a very basic folder where I have all my metadata that I'm going to push into my Scratch org or get from my Scratch org, right? So the next step that you will need to do is to create a Scratch org for this particular project, right? So I'm going to open my command palette again, and I'm going to create a Scratch org. But before that, what we need to do, we actually need to specify the namespace that you want to use before creating a Scratch org, right? So if you can see here in my new VS Code project, I have a file which is named as sfdx-project.json. So I'm going to open this file, and you can see here that there is an option where you can specify the namespace that you want to use with your Scratch org. So I'm going to enter the same namespace that I have in my developer edition org. So this is my namespace that I have already registered in my developer edition org, which is RMAK, and I'm going to use the same namespace for my Scratch org. So if you haven't registered any namespace till now, you cannot directly, add a namespace here unless and until you have registered it in your developer edition org. So that namespace must be registered with you. So I have specified a namespace which is RMAK, and I'm going to create a Scratch org with this particular namespace itself, right? Okay, so let's do one thing. I'm going to open my command palette again, and I'm going to choose an option which is create a default Scratch org. And I'm going to use this particular project Scratch dev.json, which is already a part of my project. So this is I'm going to use this particular JSON file itself, which is already created for me, and I'm going to create a new Scratch org using this file, right? For the Scratch org alias, I can just give it the same name as my project. So it is managed package project, right? And I'm going to add 1 day here because this is just for tutorial. So let's see if our Scratch org is created successfully or not. Okay, so it is just going to take a couple of seconds. And we got the output here. So let's see what it is saying. Actually, create a default Scratch org failed to run, and it is giving me a message that we don't recognize this namespace RMAK. Did you register it in your DevHub org, right? So why do we need to register our namespace in our DevHub org? So let's say you want to create an AppExchange application and you are just giving any kind of random namespace, right? So you actually cannot give a random namespace unless your developer edition or unless your DevHub know that that particular namespace belong to you, right? So let's say there are 10 AppExchange applications that are there on the Salesforce AppExchange, and each are having a different namespace like ABC, DAF, GHI, and you want to actually launch an application with a namespace JKL or something like that. So first of all, you should tell Salesforce that this is the namespace that belongs to me, right? And how you can tell Salesforce that this namespace belongs to you by registering your namespace in the DevHub org, which you are going to use to create your scratch jobs, right? So this is required. Registering the namespace in your DevHub org is required because you want to tell Salesforce that this namespace belongs to you, right? So let's see how we can register our namespace in the DevHub org. So whenever you want to register your namespace in a DevHub org, you first of all require a my domain, which should be enabled in your DevHub org, right? So that's why we actually learning about my domain, and we are actually learning how we can go to my domain, and we can just choose a domain name and register our my domain. So this my domain is required because whenever you want to register your namespace in the DevHub org. So we'll see why this my domain is required in a couple of seconds now, right? Okay, so this is my DevHub org which is not having a my domain, and this is my DevHub org which is having a my domain. So whenever you actually configure, or I should say set up your org as a DevHub, you have another object that is automatically created in your org, and that object name is Namespace Registries, right? So I'm just going to search for namespace registries to show you here that I have an object here which is named as namespace registries, which I can use to register my namespace, right? Okay, so I have opened my namespace registries object here in both the DevHub orgs that I have. So I have mainly two DevHubs here. In this DevHub, I don't have any my domain registered. In this DevHub, I have my domain registered, right? And you can see here that in the DevHub where I have my domain registered, I am getting a link namespace option. And in this DevHub where I don't have any my domain registered, I am not getting any link namespace option, right? So link namespace button is only available when you have a my domain registered for your DevHub. And why this is required? Because when you click on link namespace, actually you are actually taken to login into a different URL, and Salesforce says that if you are logging into a different URL, so in order to differentiate between two orgs, you should have a my domain which is already set up in your DevHub, right? So that your browser can know that this is a different org that you are logging into. Okay, so we got to know that we should have a namespace. We should have a my domain which is already set up for our DevHub if you want to link a namespace to your DevHub org, right? So I'm just going to close this particular org which don't have a my domain, and I'm just going to keep one org open raw which have my domain enabled, right? And this is my org which is having a namespace. So this is a developer edition org, and this is the DevHub org where I have my domain enabled, right? Okay, so we got to know that we should have a developer edition org. So I'm just going to summarize the points very quickly. First of all, we should have a developer edition org with namespace, and second, we should have a DevHub with my domain enabled, right? My domain enabled. Okay, so these two are the prerequisites if you want to create a scratch org for managed package development that we already did. So the third thing that we need to do is to link namespace in our DevHub. So I'm just going to click on this button which is link namespace, and it will ask me to log in into my developer edition org where my namespace is registered, right? So this is my developer edition org username where my namespace is registered. So I'm just going to click this particular username, and I'm going to log in into this org. And then you will see an option where it is asking you that do you want to do you want to allow this particular information to be accessed by Salesforce? Just click on allow, and it will automatically register the namespace that is present in your org. So in case you are logging into any particular org where you don't have any namespace enabled, it will not be a successful registration. But here you can see I logged in into my org where I have a namespace enabled which is RMAK. So I have a record here and I can see that my namespace is automatically registered with my DevHub now. So now what I can do, I can actually use this DevHub to create a sketch org. Okay, so I'm just going to create a sketch org again using this particular DevHub now. And I have my DevHub, I have my old DevHub which is set as a default DevHub. So I'm not going to use this particular option to create a default sketch org. I'm going to do it using my terminal because I need to specify a different DevHub here, right? So in case you have your namespace or you have your my domain enabled in your default DevHub, you can just use the options from here to create a default sketch org once you have registered your namespace into your DevHub, right? So I'm just going to open create a sketch org very quickly. So let's do SFDX force or create, and I'm going to create a sketch org for one day. I'm going to specify um, a JSON file here, and I need to specify my DevHub here. So my DevHub name will be I think it's Curious Fox DevHub, I think. Okay, so I'm creating a sketch org which will be valid for one day, and I am using my DevHub which is Curious Fox DevHub, which is this particular DevHub where I have my namespace registered, right? Okay, so let's press enter and let's see whether this time we are able to create a sketch org or not. Okay, so we can see here that our sketch org is successfully created and we have the username for our sketch org. So I'm just going to set this sketch org as a default sketch org for this particular project, and let's check it out if we have. So we don't have set up this sketch org as a default sketch org for our project. So we are going to do that very quickly here. I'm just going to copy the username. So for that, let's do SFDX force config and then set. And I need to set a default username of Sketchwork for this project. So let's add here default username, and my username is this, right? Okay, so I just need to specify an equals to here, and it should work. Okay, so here you can see I have another file which is sfdx-config.js automatically created under my sfdx folder, and I have my default username now set up successfully for this particular project, right? Okay, so let's open this sketch org and let's see whether we have our namespace in our sketch org successfully set up or not, right? And in the meanwhile, while our sketch org is opened, I can also check out the active sketch orgs in my DevHub. So let's check out the active sketch orgs in my DevHub. And this is the sketch org that we recently created, I think, and it has a namespace. So here you can see I have a namespace in my sketch org which is linked to that particular sketch org, and the namespace is RMAK, right? So I can also go to my sketch org to see whether my namespace is there or not. So I think the best way to do that is to create a custom field, and we'll see whether our namespace is coming there or not, right? So I'm just going to go into account, and I'm going to create a custom field here. So let's say our custom field name is account rating, okay, and I think it will be a number field between 1 to 5, right? So I'm going to name it as account rating, and I can just click on next, and I can just visible it to the profiles, and I'm going to save this field. Okay, so if the sketch org has my namespace enabled successfully, I should get a namespace also along with my custom field name. So here you can see along with my custom field name, my namespace is also coming, which is rmak underscore underscore account underscore rating underscore fee, right? So why I was focusing on creating a sketch org with the namespace enabled, or whenever we are working on AppExchange applications, because you can only have one namespace with a DevHub org, right? You can only register one namespace with one developer org, right? So let's say you want to work on an AppExchange product and you are working on different developer orgs, right? So in that case, you actually need to register different namespaces and different developer orgs, and then you want to combine your code, which will be a very difficult task. But in case you are working on SFDX and you are working on scratch orgs, you can actually create multiple scratch orgs with same namespace, right? So this is actually a very I should say good feature of ScratchOps, that we can create multiple ScratchOps with the same namespace, so that we can actually use a single DevHub and create multiple ScratchOps, and we can assign those ScratchOps to different developers, and they can work on then that particular, I mean, their own ScratchOps, and then we can merge our code and metadata very quickly and very easily, because we can create multiple ScratchOps with the same namespace, right? So I think that's all for this tutorial, guys. Just give it a try. Just to create a new developer edition or set up your namespace there, and then try to link it with your DevHub and create a new namespace. Create a new sketchwork with a namespace, and let's start working on your AppExchange application, right? Yeah. So that's all for this tutorial. I'll see you in the next video. Till then, have a good day. Bye bye.